Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated. When you tune in, don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. Training camp starts next week, of course. So there's going to be a lot to talk about, and a lot of it you'll get on ESPN.com because I'll be doing little daily training camp nuggets, among other things. So look for it there starting next week. There will be a press conference next Tuesday with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn. So there you go. Training camp right around the corner, finally. But before we get there, I got a couple things. In a minute, I'm going to be joined, or a couple minutes, I'm going to be joined by Nick Hill, who is a trainer at Exos in Arizona, who has worked with Deebo Samuel for a number of years. And so he can give you a great sense of where Samuel is in terms of his conditioning, his shape he's in, what he's been working on. Get a good feel for Deebo through Nick. So I think he was a very good guest. So you'll enjoy that. Stay tuned for that in a couple minutes. I got a few things to talk about. A couple other receivers in the news this week, as I'm sure you know. But before I get there, Huel is back as a sponsor. I'm a fan, as you know, of their Black Edition for a couple of reasons. 40 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals. When I'm in a hurry, you don't feel like making a big breakfast, that's when I turn to Huel and I feel good. It costs less than $3 a bottle. You're getting a meal. My favorite, I think you know by now, strawberry banana and chocolate. New customers get 15% off at huel.com. That's huel.com when you use my code Keim, Keim. That's 15% for new customers using my exclusive code Keim, Keim at huel.com. See our description for the terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition. Now, let's get back to the show. So let's get to the receivers that I wanted to talk about before I get to Deebo Samuel's trainer. All right, obviously Terry McLaurin had a 30-minute press conference this week after his Eastern Automotive's commercial shoot. I was up in Bristol, Connecticut, so I wasn't able to attend. You knew that. I told you that the other day. I was able to talk about it on NFL Live. Clearly, I listened to the press conference. And just, a couple quick takeaways. I'm sure you have your own takeaways. You may be tired of talking about it. But a couple things. One, clearly a lot of frustration. I think that was well known, but it's the first time Terry's come out and verbalized it. So, and it was that's a long press conference, folks. So I think that was the frustration was very evident. And it's not just about money. Terry, I don't think is ruled that way. I think one thing you know about McLaurin is it's more about value. If receiver X over here is valued at this, why do you not see me in this category? That's what I think it is a lot for him. I think if receiver X was making, $12 an hour, Terry would want to be paid $12 an hour, right? In terms of like if that was the top receiver, right? Something, whatever, you get the point. It's not just about give me the highest amount. It's I see myself in this class, so therefore, why don't you? Anyway, that's part of it. Clearly wants to be here, not demanding a trade. I think even if he did, this group has been through some of these things in other places. So I don't think that would be something they would entertain. They want to win. They think they can compete for the Super Bowl, right? They think they can get that point. Why not? They were a game away last year. You're not going to do that without Terry McLaurin. You're not going to do that by getting extra draft picks. And, the Steelers aren't going to trade TJ Watt for McLaurin. They already have an expensive receiver, and it's a top pass rushing defensive end. That's a highly impactful position. Anyways, I think you know that too. But he wants to be here, and it makes sense. His value here is higher. Their value with him is better, right? So they need him. I think he works very well here, right? So then it's the age thing. He's going to turn 30 in September. He clearly was bothered by hey, let's make it a case-by-case basis. I think that's understandable. I think the one thing you have to keep in mind when you're looking at the age, it's not the age this year because he's already under contract this year. So they're clearly comfortable with him at 30 doing what he can still do. As he pointed out, he's the same guy who took that slant to the house against the Eagles in the championship game. 6 months later, nothing's going to change. And that's true. I think what they're going to look at is if this is an extension, it starts at 31, 32, 33, maybe 34, right? Maybe 35. What's it going to look like at that point? That's what Washington's going to look at. And I think for McLaurin, if I'm him, probably look at it the same way. What's it going to look like? Listen, I'm still doing this. Nobody knows what it's going to look like a few years from now. You can guess, you can speculate, you can look at analytics, all of that, but nobody knows how McLaurin is going to look, what he's going to look like in several years. But that's that needle you got to thread. And I think part of that, it's hard to find comps for him. I know other receivers signed. Garrett Wilson is a lot younger. And so this is his second contract. This is McLaurin's third. So, anyways, this is why it's been a tricky one for sure. I still think they get something done. But when it is, I don't know because both sides are better together. I've said that a lot, and I still strongly believe that. I don't think that the public pressure from the fan base or anything like that is going to put a dent into the Harris, Peters, whatever their thoughts are in this. I don't think that's going to move them, but who knows? I can't speak for them. So, anyways, but just knowing them enough, I think there's, I don't think that will be the case, but we'll see. I think the other thing that the last sticking point here is the Snyder era. Terry was the face of the franchise, always out front talking, always very professional, handled it very well during a very turbulent time. He was a guy that often had to talk when they didn't have other people who could serve as a voice of the locker room, right? He got asked to do that a lot, and he handled it very well every single time. And they were losing, and there was a lot of bad stuff. It was difficult. So he's pointing out that. But I think if you're this group, how much do you look back at that because you say, hey, that wasn't us since we got here. This has been what's happened, and they've put him and the team in a better situation. So that's why I say, like, they've got to resolve all of those little things. Can it get? Yes, it can get done. It's just a matter of when, but it certainly can get done because many other contract situations have been like this. They typically all get done. Anyways, so we'll see what happens there. And then finally, Art Monk having his number retired, number 81, the same day that McLaurin talked, found out about that. And it's a well-deserved, overdue honor for Monk. And it will be before the Seahawks game on November 9th. And there you go, the Sunday night game. And yeah, it's a great honor. We spoke to Monk in a conference call. He's not a guy who loved talking to the media when he was a player. He just wanted to focus on his thing. He's a man of few words, and he'll even say that he doesn't oftentimes have a lot to say to anybody, so including his family. But this is what he had to say when somebody asked on the conference call about what it meant to him to be remembered after all this time.
Yeah, they got me. And but yeah, even though I was the one, I guess, being acknowledged, it was good to see their faces there. I just felt like home. It was, when I was playing during the season, it's one thing to stand on the sideline, but when you're called into the game and you get in that huddle and you see those faces that you're familiar with, you feel, I don't even know how to explain it, but you just feel it's just a comfortable place to be. And so, getting there and seeing all those faces there that were part of this, I could relax. I don't know, it was just a great feeling to see their faces.
So there you go. It's a tale of two receivers there, and I think both of them one day will be up in that ring. Well, obviously Monk already is. I think Terry McLaurin one day will be, because I do believe he'll continue his career here, and his mark here will be a very strong one. Anyway, now let's talk about another receiver with Nick Hill, trainer from Exos in Arizona, who has worked with Deebo Samuel for a number of years. All right, Nick. Well, first of all, I appreciate you joining me. First of all, how long have you worked with Deebo?
With Deebo, I worked with him first through our combine prep process at Exos. So that was 27. What year was that? 2019, I guess, is when he came out. So that's when we first met, when he came out of South Carolina. And we do that. We have a pretty big draft prep class every year. So he was in a class actually, which was like one of the most iconic receiver classes of all time. It was him. So at our facility alone, we had Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Paris Campbell, N'Keal Harry, um, Johnny Dixon, who was a big name coming out of Ohio State at
Yep.
the time. That was all one receiver class. Uh, and it was always, I always refer back to it as the track and field class. So it was, yeah, I mean, Deebo ran 4.47, AJ ran 4.4, DK ran 4.3, Paris ran 4.3. So that's when we first met. And then we've been, working together pretty much ever since. There was a year or two where he kind of was doing some other stuff. And rookies, it's always tough with their
Right.
schedule. But me and him have been working regularly now for like the last 4 years or so.
What jumped out you when you first started working with him? What kind of things stood out to you about him?
Physically, it's what you see on tape. He's so explosive. He's really good at acceleration and very powerful. So that's what he's special at, and that's why he does what he does on the field as well. That's why when he gets the ball in his hand, he's so dangerous because as soon as he has the ball and he can accelerate through a defense, it's very difficult for defenders to get an angle on him because he's so quick from point A to point B. Um, so that was always something that stood out: his power, his initial acceleration, and that's still special to this day. And then some of the other things that stand out are he's actually very good top end as well. So he's very good at getting to speed and then maintaining speed. And then obviously he's very shifty too. So he's really quick in and out of his breaks. And he's one of those very, very powerful, strong, similar to like a Saquon Barkley, who I've also
Right.
worked with.
Right.
And when they work together, they're very competitive on any of the power metrics that we're doing or time splits or anything like that. So it's a very similar body type where it's just strong, powerful, fast.
So, as a worker, what jumped out to you about him?
He's the type of guy that once he gets something in his mind and he kind of puts those blinders on, I mean, he's going full speed. We're going at 6 in the morning every day right now. So, and he goes 6 in the morning. He has a speed and power lift session with me. He does an afternoon cardio session where it's a little bit more like it's in a boxing gym and there's some, it's not purely boxing, but it's just high level cardio in the afternoons, and then he runs routes later in the evening. So he's going 2, 3 sessions a day, and then he's going to bed and waking up and going after it the next day. So he's very disciplined when it comes to his work and when he needs to do his job and when he needs to start preparing for his job. And I think that's where he gets a lot of heat for whatever reason is once the season is over and they've had some deep runs into the playoffs for a couple of years. And once the season's over, he does shut off and relax a little bit for a month, 4 weeks, whatever it is. But then he gets right back to the hustle and he's dialed right back in and he's on the gas pedal. So they always catch a photo of him, at the beach or something like that a month after he's been off a season where he's just, he's relaxing and everybody makes a big deal about it. But I've never sent him into camp. He's never gone into camp overweight. He's never been overweight in season. He's never had issues with any of that when it's time to actually work, which is always fun. It's just media being media.
Well, it is, and it's funny because there was a picture from the Commanders practice where it's like, and I'm on the sidelines. He's big.
Yeah.
That's not doesn't mean overweight. He's big. So do you when you see that and you're making the rounds is like just here we go again.
Yeah, yeah, and they know that he knows that at this point too. And usually he's a little bit bigger, just like most of my guys. They're a little bit bigger in those early off-season phases.
Hmm.
That's a time for them they're not running as much. We're not doing as much sprint work or cardio. That's when they're putting on a little bit more muscle. So even like a Christian Kirk, who is also an athlete of mine, he's about 8 to 10 pounds heavier than he normally plays at that time, but that's by design. And then by the time they get to August camp, they're usually at their weight. So Deebo hasn't really attended a lot of OTAs with the 49ers.
Hmm.
So this was his first time attending OTAs, really since he was a rookie, I think.
Hmm.
And he obviously did that because he signed with the Commanders, new team, so he's going to OTAs. So the media hasn't seen a lot of him in those months training because he's training with me usually.
Right.
So I think that fluctuation, which is totally normal for us and is not out of the ordinary, was just new from a media standpoint. They're like, oh, he looks a little bit bigger, but like you said, you see him in person, he's a big guy. He's
Yeah.
not, he's never going to be 180 pounds.
No.
Even at, 8% body fat, he's still 220 pounds, 8% body fat. So it's by no means an out of shape big. That's just how he's built.
He looks like a Antonio Gibson was here, right? And he was a former receiver, big running back. If he had gone to receiver, that's how Deebo looks, where it's a bigger guy playing that position. You know what I mean? And which is
Yeah.
why he can do a bunch of different things. But
Yeah.
did you notice anything different about his mindset this offseason because he's coming to a new situation?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's not to say he wasn't always in a very
Right.
disciplined mindset with the Niners. He was always very dialed in going into season, but there's definitely, you're with a new team, it's a new organization, you want to make the right impression. You want to come in and play the role that they brought you there for. So
Right.
there's definitely a level of um, focus that I like to see, and that he's really dialed in with, and it's almost there's a humbling experience a little bit too, where it's a little bit of, not by no means is he the rookie there, but
Right.
he's the new guy.
Right.
Whereas with the Niners, he was the OG. He was
Right.
the vet. Even being 4 or 5 years in, you kind of lean into that vet role with that receiver room that they had. Where now he's the young guy, not the young guy, but the new guy.
Right.
He's the new guy, and so um, he takes that on very positively. And I think he's fully prepared to go into that role and prove that he's there for a reason, especially in that offense that's very dangerous
Right.
already, and with a very playoff contending team in a tough division. So I think he steps up to all of that, and I think he's very excited for it.
Could you tell in the past, and this might be hard to tell because if they work a certain way, but could you tell when like this guy's going to have a big year? Can you get that sense when you're working with them sometimes?
Yes, I tell you what, I had that sense working with Saquon. I mean,
Really? Okay.
yeah, when he had I started working with him when he had the knee injury, um, and then he had the back and forth contract negotiations with the Giants, and then he had that great year, and then went to the Eagles. So you can see that, and Deebo was kind of in similar situations with the Niners. He had asked to seek a trade or whatever the terminology was, um, and so there's this like, I want to go out and show that I am who I am. And
Mhm.
it was similar. I bring up the comparison with Saquon because he had those great first couple of years.
Mhm.
Deebo had the same thing with the Niners. He had those really good first couple of years. And then you hear the chirping from people that's like, oh, it's washed up. He's overweight, this, and that. And it's not that that gets to him. It's almost just a little bit of extra fuel of,
Mhm.
okay, well, now I'm with this new situation. I'm with the new team. I'm happy where I'm at, and I'm just gonna go out there and show everybody that I am the same exact person. And it hasn't been a fall off. Football is football. A receiver is a receiver where you need a quarterback to throw you the ball. You need an offensive line to block so the quarterback can throw you the ball. So there's a lot of different factors that are going to play into a receiver having a great year, at least numbers wise. And so I think he's in that position now where it's like, yeah, let's see how these first couple of games play out and camp plays out, and then everybody can start talking after that.
He's got, I mean, I would assume like, I don't know how much he talks about this, but and he was in a good situation in San Francisco. He had a good offensive minded head coach. He had a good quarterback, but he's got a situation here where he's got to be excited to come to with Jaden and then Cliff Kingsbury calling plays, et cetera.
Yeah, no, he was, I mean, arguably one of the best offensive minds in the game,
Mhm.
with the Niners, and
Mhm.
they had a great system for him, and he had a great time there, and everything. Even when they parted ways, it was still very positive,
Right.
and everybody spoke very highly of the other party. But yeah, you're going into a new situation where you have another very exciting offense. You
Right.
have an offense that really fits his game too, with some other weapons. So I think again, it's just, he's excited. It's like Lewis Hamilton going from Mercedes to Ferrari. You're going from one great to the next.
Right.
It's not like you're dropping down and racing for somebody lower on the totem pole. So he's going from one great offensive mind to the next, and one offensive scheme to the next. So yeah, there's definitely a level of excitement for him rolling into this year.
As he, as a receiver, as a player, gets up there, matures, I guess, instead of getting older, but matures. How do you adapt as a trainer to what they need? Like, what are some of the things that you focused on with him this off season?
Yeah, that's a big one, and that's very helpful when you're working with guys for an extended period of time. Um, because me and Deebo have been working together for so long, I know the things that he has going on that are chronic, whether that be something to do with mechanical ankle things because he has hardware in his ankle, all the way up to new little nicks and bangs that he gets throughout the season and whatever is new each year. So last year he had the hand surgery because he tore something in his hand in the season. So that's a new thing that we have to work around and try and make sure that that's cleared up and good to go and ready. So things, they just kind of add up as we go. And I start to just build more of a profile on him, an athlete profile on him, to where I know when he comes in the off season, these are the boxes we need to check from a health standpoint, from a movement standpoint. And then these are the normal boxes that we also need to check. Make sure his weight's in a good place, make sure he's moving at certain speeds. And then the other thing from the training perspective is I will reach out to the strength staff, to the team at the Commanders, just like I would reach out to the team with the 49ers and get his GPS numbers. What is he going to be required to hit in camp so we can start to prepare him for camp. And so that's always awesome because that communication is always great to have, and they're always awesome too. They make sure that we have everything we need so that when he rolls into camp, he's fully ready to go.
So was there a point of emphasis this offseason with him at all?
Yeah, definitely conditioning because they run that fast-paced offense.
Right.
So they're running that no huddle offense. It's very fast-paced. They're moving. They're on the ball. And so the biggest emphasis outside of the normal moving well, healthy speed and power was we want your conditioning to be really on point going into camp because, buddy, you're going to get on the ball and get back on the ball and get back on. So it's a high-pace offense. And so that was definitely an emphasis going in, a little bit different than the Niners situation.
Right.
That's I would say one of the big things that stood out.
And how is he running to you compared to several years ago when you watch him?
I mean, I say this every year, but he looks great right now. He really does. He's moving really well. He's moving at very high speeds right now. He's matching all the speeds that we want him to hit. So he's running 20 plus miles per hour on everything that we're tracking as we're hitting those higher speeds. And he's the impressive part this year is not only is he able to hit those 20 plus mile per hour sprints, but he's able to do it over and over and over and over. So repeat sprintability was one of the things that we've been focusing on because of that high pace offense. And so making sure that he can hit it, but not just hit it once or twice. Come back to the line, you get however long you need, whatever the rest increments are, and then you hit it again. So like maybe he's doing an 8-second sprint, walks back, he gets a full minute rest, and he does another one. But we do 15 of them. So, and he's able to match those numbers throughout that entire training session. So that's been a big component, and it's been very impressive just watching him kind of work through that and work up to it.
Yeah, well, the other thing is too, like what the other thing that went viral was him on that treadmill.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I just put another one up today, actually. That
okay.
was funny because so Leggett, obviously they were at South Carolina, and I trained Leggett for his combine process as well. And so anytime Legette's in town, they get together and they're training together. It's always, it's super fun just watching them train. So they're competing on the treadmill, and I posted that, and people were reaching out to me, and they were like, everybody's telling me this is from last year, and this is old, and it's not new," because everybody wants them to be out of shape, and
Right.
they want the clickbait stuff, and it's like,
Right.
no,
Right.
this is real. This was today. I'll put a newspaper up if you need me to, but I posted another one today of him actually running faster on the treadmill than he did with
Really.
Legette. So, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's always fun.
last one, then you talked about how he and Saquon are competitive. You got a fun memory with that one? Like, where do you see that most? And do they chirp at each other? Like, how does it like, or how does that play out?
I mean, it's part of the environment and the atmosphere that's created in those training sessions with those guys. Those are probably two of the most competitive athletes that I've worked with. Saquon's
Right.
definitely up there. They haven't, I mean, the last time they worked together was 2 off seasons ago, but the big one that they were competing in all the time that I always put the guys on is the Kaiser Power Squat.
Hmm.
And the Kaiser Power Squat is basically a machine that it's an explosive squat that the athletes are doing, and it shows an automatic readout of the power output that they're putting up. So there's a screen right in front of their face, and so every rep there's a number that flashes on that screen.
Hmm.
And so, for example, if it's 400 pounds on the Kaiser Power Squat, the athletes are usually hitting around 4,000 watts of power. But when you put a Saquon or you put a Deebo on there, they're hitting 5,000 watts of power or 5,500 watts of power, which is substantially bigger than even elite athletes on that thing. And so them going back and forth on that is always fun because it's an immediate response. Like there's immediate feedback to them. And it's just full lower body power, which is obviously what they're both very special at. I think
Yeah.
you probably saw Deebo back squatting whatever it was, 500 pounds
Yeah.
in the off season, and then you see Saquon doing the similar thing. So that would be those big competitive ones. Whereas like a Legette, you always see them sprinting. They're always going back and forth on the sprinting. Legette's pretty fast though.
Yeah.
Legette's
Yes.
he can
Yes, he
fly.
is. Yes, he is. So, what? Anything else on Deebo to know from your experience that is important to know?
I think he's going to be awesome in that offense. He's a big team guy. He's a great locker room guy. I mean, he was like that with the Niners.
Mhm.
I'm excited to see how he meshes with the team over there, and he's just always a big energy guy. And he's the type of guy that will not just in the locker room have great chemistry and everything, but he's also a guy that will break a 20-yard, 30-yard run and hype up the whole team.
Mhm.
He can change momentum on the field immediately. And so I'm excited to see him just get the ball in his hands and then let him do what he does and why he's special. So yeah, I'm excited for this season and now to become a Commanders fan.
There
Last
you
year I
go.
was a 49ers fan, and now I'm a Commanders fan. So
There you go. Nick, I appreciate your time. This was fantastic. Thank you very much.
yeah, anytime. Yeah, anytime. You got my number, and it was good talking to you.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Nick for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I will be back on Monday with another episode as we get much closer to camp and going to ramp up the podcast to reflect where we're at, folks. Going to be every day once this starts. So there you go. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next time.